took a turn in my life and I couldn't watch him any longer when Joe Theismann had his leg snapped by LT. If you saw something like that on TV today, do you turn away?
It depends on what it is. That, no, but for some reason, twisting ankles, ankle sprains, I cringe every time I see it. Yeah. Even though I know exactly what it is, I fixed 1,000 of them, and I still I look away every time I see it.
How does one get an interest in what you do for a living? We were looking, as I was researching you, shoulders, hands, all the surgeries that you do. Where did this start for you, Doc?
I think it really began. I didn't always know that I wanted to go into medicine. Yeah. I went to University of Wisconsin for college. I majored in business and was an accounting major. And I wasn't till I was really working in accounting that I realized I don't like this. I need to figure out what I really, really want to do. And I knew that I liked the medical field. I liked taking care of people. I liked interacting and doing like a hands-on job. And I got into orthopedics eventually because I loved sports. Mm-hmm. It was a way to kind of be involved with sports, and I knew that athletically I wasn't good enough to professionally do anything or make any living doing it. And so I got into sports medicine because it was my way to kind of tie all the things I really love doing together with the kind of job I like.
How long has sports medicine, as we know it now, really been around?
That's a great question. I think it's always kind of been around.
Right.
But specialized in terms of a fellowship, where I did a fellowship in sports medicine. That's probably been around. It's been around forever, but really more popular probably over the last 20 years.
The reason I asked the question is because, Kenny and myself, we're frequent flyers at Ortho United. We've had everything done from knees to hands. But when I consider what happened when we were kids, if you had an ACL, a knee surgery, it was pretty much a death sentence in the field of sports, wasn't it?
It wasn't a death sentence, but the techniques that we've been able to develop can get you back, faster. And really what it is a lot of techniques actually have come and gone, and some things that we used before we use again, but the minimally invasive way that we do it now helps you recover a little bit faster. See, and that's kind of the big difference.
That's key. Minimally invasive. I like that because you're talking about surgery now, and hopefully it's a last resort, correct?
Right. Minimally invasive, yes. Last resort, absolutely. Surgery is far. I try to be very conservative in my practice, and surgery is the last resort. Okay. If there's a way that you can be treated successfully non-operatively, I always think that that's the way to go.
How many years have you been with Ortho United / Spectrum, I think is where you started? How many years now?
So this is my 6th year, and I was practicing for 5 years in Chicago before that.
Why Stark County? Why Spectrum at the time, which is now Ortho?
So it's interesting. So practicing in Chicago, which is where I'm from, I love it. My family's there. It's tough sledding in Chicago, and you can't necessarily have the practice that you really want. And luckily for me, I have the best wife, and we identified the things that we thought were not great in Chicago, and we went and did a 6-month search together and identified the things that we thought were the best aspects of a practice. And she said she'll move anywhere with me.
Wow.
And we found it here. We identified very specific criteria in a practice, and just went for it, and this was the place.
Yeah, and it's worked out well for you. Sports medicine, your specialty, shoulders, knees. What else? What all do you do? If we see you operating one day, it might be this, it might be that. What's the range?
So the most shoulder and knees. That's what I do. A little bit of everything. As I advance in my career, it's a little less trauma than it used to be. It used to be a lot more of the Saturday night car accident special.
Right.
As I move on, it's a little less of that and more elective. Shoulders and knees the most. Hand surgery, a little bit of foot and ankle surgery. Pretty much everything, but I'd say shoulders and knees are where I specialize the most.
What's the most common one?
The most common thing I do is knee arthroscopy, followed by shoulder arthroscopy. Both minimally invasive procedures. But again, just because it's minimally invasive and it may be 2 or 3 small incisions, a lot can go on through those 2 or 3 small incisions.
OrthoUnitedOhio.com. Dr. Zachary Stender is our guest today. It's Doc Talk on the Kenny and JT Show. Doc, when do we know it's the right time to make an appointment to come see you?
It's a great question. So I think that it's joint specific. So if I were just to take shoulder, for example, a lot of times that's a very common question that people come in to my office with. Hey, did I come in too soon, or did I let this go too long? I get that a lot. And I think if you just take shoulder as an example, if you've had some shoulder pain that's been nagging you for a while, okay, not a big deal. Maybe try some ice, some anti-inflammatories, and general over-the-counter things that, just make a lot of sense to try to begin with. If the shoulder pain is disrupting your sleep, if you are being compromised in your activities of daily living, then it's time.
Okay.
And then there's the other side of that. If you have an injury, if you have a fall, and you can't lift your arm, that's not one that should be treated, anything at home. That's please come see me right away.
I also want to ask you about supplements. Do you advise any supplements for joint care, something that can keep us from maybe injuring or making an injury we already have worse?
So I don't think... So you got to be very careful with the supplements.
Okay.
A lot of them are not FDA approved.
Right.
A lot of the research is very limited, and especially with social media, you may not be getting accurate information on...
No, really? On social media? Come on.
may-
Want to
may
pay
not.
this toll that I just got an email from?
Right. Probably not a
was
good
it on the
idea.
highway?
Yes. But that's not to say there aren't, good attributes. And so, just to give an example, glucosamine and chondroitin has been around to treat arthritis for a while now. It's deemed to be pretty safe, very few side effects. And what I tell people with that specific one is I'm not sure it's going to help you. The data says that 50% of the time it's going to help, 50% of the time it may not. So try it for a month. If you feel that you notice a difference, okay, good, we have something there. If you tried it for a month and it didn't really make a difference, then you haven't wasted too much.
We were talking in the lobby before the show about ACLs, and you got your undergrad at UConn, correct?
Correct. I actually did my residency
At UConn. All right. So they just won the basketball championship. I'm wearing gear. I told you I met Gino. I would love to play for a guy like that. I can understand why those girls want to play for him. But we were discussing men versus women and the ACL, and I told my boss, he was out there, I said, women have, a bigger tendency to tear their ACL than guys do. And, you were, why is that? What is it where, like Paige Becker's, Juju, just went down with an injury, ACL injury at USC? Why is that where women tend to maybe have more ACL injuries, or there's a better chance they're going to get one?
So that's a really interesting question, and it's multifactorial. So there is over 200,000 ACL tears a year. And as people are playing more sports, there's more tears. The number of ACL tears out there is higher in men than women, but the percentage of athletes is much, much higher in women. 4 to 8 times as many ACL tears in women than men. And there are factors that you can control and factors that you can't control. There's some bony anatomical differences in women than men that predispose them. There's ligament differences that predispose them. But the biggest thing, and an area that's actually a passion of mine, is there are muscle imbalances, jumping techniques, landing techniques, things that you can modify to decrease those risks. And yes.
And that's where this comes into play. And for people watching on Facebook, I'll hold it up so they can take a look at it right now. But you handed me a pamphlet, Jump Smart, ACL Injury Prevention. So making it tougher to tear your ACL by doing specific, plans and exercises and that. Share a little information on what this is all about.
So this is a project that I'm working on. I found the best partner. Caleb Coe is his name. And he has a passion for rehabbing ACLs, and I have a passion for repairing and fixing ACLs. And we came together, and this is not it's not brand new. It's other places. It's not so much here. And what we are doing is we created an ACL injury prevention program where we can focus on these modifiable risk factors. And we developed our process for screening, identifying low, middle, and high risk people who have certain tendencies in the way they're jumping, landing, and the way that their muscles are balanced. And we can identify these risk factors. And if you participate in this program, are compliant with it, and then stick with it, you can reduce ACL tears up to 50 to 70%.
Wow. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
You always want to practice doing things the right way, and that's when you don't usually injure yourself. Dr. Stender is our guest right now. This is Doc Talk on the Kenny and JT Show. I think it's so exciting. This is neat because these are things that we talk about it every day, and orthounitedohio.com is the webpage if you have any need, and they have walk-in clinics as well. So you might be walking down the street. You don't have to be a professional athlete. You don't have to be a college athlete. Sometimes life comes at you too quickly. And, Doctor, I was wondering, we talk everything from ACLs, MCLs, and all these knee surgeries. What about knee replacement surgery? And do you use the robotic-assisted surgery or no?
So I do not perform knee or hip replacements.
Okay.
I would refer you to one of my partners for that. But it's funny, I say I do sports medicine in my office, but really sports medicine doesn't mean getting back always to soccer or baseball or football or basketball. It means getting back to like whatever you consider sport activity in your life. So that could be gardening. That could be walking with your spouse. That could be just outside and having fun. It doesn't
Walking
necessarily
the dog
mean
like we do with our
walking
dogs,
the dog,
right?
throwing the ball for your dog,
Sure.
all these things. These are sports.
Yeah,
That's true.
I mean, you're still, using the same, not putting as much torque on it, but you're still using the same motion.
This guy's taking care of the Red Wings, the Pistons, the Tigers. I mean, when you consider the fact that you want to go to somebody that's a specialist with orthopedics, it doesn't get any better than, I'm going to go to the guy that handles the MLB. I'm going to go to the guy that handles the NHL. I mean, it comes with just like you said earlier, it comes with the territory. And a lot of times you consider the fact when you hear orthopedic, you think professional sports, you think NCAA, but like you said, it could be just walking down the street or whatever. And it's good to know that we've got you, and you're right here locally. How many days a week are you in the OR?
I'm in the operating room 1 to 2 days a week, depending on the week. In the office 3 days a week, at least, sometimes 4.
Nice.
And I have a rule in my office. I can see as many people as I need to. I am never full. And if I have 50 people in the office, my schedulers all know that if you get hurt, we can see 51 that day.
It's nice.
I love
Every
that.
time you try to go and make an appointment somewhere, I can get you in 3 months. But it's not like that with you.
No, absolutely not. We would get you in.
And now they've got 2 dedicated walk-in express care clinics open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday. And these locations are 7442 Frank Avenue Northwest, North Canton, as well as 4760 Belpar Street Northwest in Canton, Ortho United. And I love that because these injuries can occur anytime. And like JT said, a lot of times you go places up and got to wait a week. Well, I'm in pain. I don't want to wait a week, so this is an opportunity all tied with Ortho United, right?
The most amazing part about those urgent cares is if you go to a non-orthopedic urgent care for your orthopedic emergency, or you go to the hospital, not only are you going to wait a really long time, but they're really just going to refer you to us. So
Right.
this is an opportunity just to go right to the source and get right into our office.
I want to ask you another question specifically about inflammation because it seems as though anytime we injure anything, inflammation to old guys like Kenny and myself we sprained our ankle and you go put some ice on it. How else can we deal with inflammation in our bodies?
Great question. And I am not opposed to the ice technique. You ask my parents, I treat everything with ice. They hate that from me. They injure something, what should I do? Ice it, Mom.
But you're a
Ice
doctor.
it.
Can't you do
Yeah,
better?
That's all you
Can't do
got.
better.
That's all you got.
Is that-
Zach, my shoulder's clicking. Just put some ice on it, Mom. Yeah. But there are a lot of things. There's anti-inflammatory modalities. I think that, depending on your health, you can take anti-inflammatories. There's a lot of good ones over the counter. We prescribe some stronger ones, but of course, you have to look at your medical history and see what else is involved. There are some, foods that maybe cause some inflammation. There's a lot of research, especially coming out more recently. So working with a dietitian can sometimes decrease inflammation in joints. I mentioned Tylenol is a good one. And then there's just over-the-counter creams and stuff like that that work nicely.
How about that stuff
see that,
Shaq
Kenny?
uses, man?
Kenny?
He puts that icy hot on us. That
Told
stuff
you,
really
I
works.
wasn't going to look for the free consultation, but if you listen to the questions I'm asking,
I got you.
you're learning something here.
Yeah. Well, does that stuff work? Bengay, icy hot, is that worth it or not?
So it does. It doesn't have the specific icy hots don't have salicylates, which is the active anti-inflammatory in aspirin.
Okay.
All right. But a lot of them do have cooling, heating properties that can make you feel a lot better.
Tiger Balm, that too? Is that all right?
Tiger Balm, it's plus or minus.
Okay.
But a lot of people swear by it. I'm not going to say no to that. If it makes you feel better,
Well,
go
that's
for
just
it.
it.
Like you said earlier, though, right? Try it. And if it works for you, great. It may not work for everybody.
It may not work.
Just because it tingles on your skin doesn't mean it's actually doing anything
Right.
to you. You know, it sounds or it feels like it's doing something. I think it's incredible that, the anti-inflammatory a lot of times might alleviate some of the problems now, but it doesn't mean you're not going to need it any time later. So Dr. Stender, again, Ortho United, I want to give that webpage again, because if you're thinking that you need something, or if you want to get in to see one of the doctors, and there's like 35 of you guys there at Ortho United, orthounitedohio.com. Remember that webpage, because they can do everything.
Yeah, they can. And you and I have visited Dr. Seth. I've visited Dr. Dulick. And now Dr. Stender. We can add him to our Rolodex of doctors from Ortho United.
Well, the good news is he's a Chicago guy. We don't have to ask him a million times who he thinks the Browns should draft next week. Or do you have an idea?
No, I don't have an idea. But I am happy that it seems the Bears are going in the right direction.
See?
I think
All
that
right.
they're... So we'll see, though.
You spent time in Detroit with 3 professional teams. What was that experience like? How valuable has that been for you now with what you do?
It was incredible. Like, you can't really describe. It really hurt, by the way, after I did it, my ability to go watch any sporting event, because once you've sat on the sidelines, sat on the bench, been in the locker room,
right?
Like, it's hard to just sit there and park in the regular parking lot and sit in the regular seats.
Sure.
Like, it's hard to do that. But I got treated so well, not only by all the players and the staff, and everyone was so welcoming that it was just a fantastic experience. It was I spent 2 weeks in spring training with the Tigers, in Lakeland, Florida.
Nice.
And you really kind of get to know everybody. I still remember Max Scherzer was just in the training room, just bouncing this ball, staring at me with and I'm trying to look, and I'm not sure which eye I'm supposed to look at.
Right.
But he was just so nice, and he just, hey, what's your story? Tell me about yourself.
You probably thought you were the new left fielder. You look like you could play.
I don't know about that, but he was so great, and that's how everyone was. They were welcoming and nice, and it was a pleasure to take care of them, and they appreciated it, and I appreciated them.
Not going to ask you to break any HIPAA laws and ask a question like who have you worked on, but is there a play or a game that comes to mind when you say, man, I was there when such and such happened? Not injury related, but just like a great game that you can remember.
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know if there were. I don't think so. The Tigers made the playoffs that year. The Red Wings eked into the playoffs.
Okay.
I'll tell you the one thing. I don't know if it was a one play, but the one thing that really impressed me, and you see it kind of, but the hockey. These guys would come in.
See?
They'd have taken a puck to the face. They had a dentist that was part of our medical staff.
Right.
And they were getting dental work and faces stitched up, and the only shifts they missed were the ones that it took them to walk back, get the stitches, and go back out. That was
Unreal.
it was incredible.
Hockey players are a different breed.
Yeah, they were so
really.
tough.
I'm not putting down baseball players, basketball, or football players, but I've covered hockey for 30 plus years, and you're right. If there's a way, I've seen a guy have a broken ankle, went back, had it taped up, finished that game because he knew after that game he wasn't going to play anymore, but adrenaline and all that, finished the game and helped his team win, and then he went back out there with a broken ankle, and it was mind-boggling.
Yeah. The other thing that I again, not one thing, but what was just impressive that I didn't understand from watching on TV is that in baseball you have all different size players. Even the shortstop, who looks like the smallest one out there, is so strong. So all of them are so strong.
You know, you take this almost full circle once again, and you talk about the hockey players and how tough they are. They're not the usual multi-million-dollar players that we see in the or the NBA and the NFL. So what I'm getting at is this. They're basically playing still for the love of the sport, and that's no different than, like we talked about, walking your dog. You twist your ankle, you fall down in a hole or something, and you need an orthopedic specialist. Ortho United and Dr. Stender right there.
Absolutely. Doc, getting back to the ACL injury prevention, how can people get more information on that? Because I'm one that if I can help prevent something, okay, if I can do anything to better myself, to keep something bad from happening, whether it's financial, whether it's the radio show, but especially if you're an athlete, if I can make sure I have less of a chance to tear something like that, where can they get information on this?
It's simple. So jumpsmartusa.com.
Okay.
JUMPSMART, USA.com. We are running camps starting this summer. We're going to do multiple sessions. It's going to be twice a week for 8 weeks. And it's honestly, it's a no-brainer. It's stick with this program. We're going to make it super cost-effective. We're not trying to make a bunch of money on this program. We're trying to make it available because we know how successful it is to prevent these injuries. And we know that, you injure your ACL, you're out 9 months minimum, a year. So if you can prevent it, it's a big, big difference.
Is it sport specific or for any athlete?
It's really for any athlete. We are targeting 7th grade through high school, but really anybody who wants to do it.
And I'm thinking out loud now on this. You're trying to prevent something you fix. So you're trying to keep people from coming to see you for the surgeries by doing this prevention plan, right?
It's true. As I said, there's 200,000 ACLs being torn a year, and there's still plenty to go around. And we're not going to prevent all of them. Yeah. But if we can make a difference with this, there's not this same thing for rotator cuffs. Yeah. There's not this same thing for meniscus injuries. It's this specific injury that people have figured out how to properly train and prevent. And it made so much sense to me. And I'm still going to fix a ton of them. Nice. But if I can prevent some, I think that's a big win.
Is there an age where you might be more apt to blow out your ACL, your MCL? You talk about the rotator cuff. Does it come with age?
The rotator cuff comes with age because that is a low blood supply part of the body. And over time, you have just attrition that occurs. People do overhead lifting, or they're throwing, or doing all kinds of stuff above shoulder height throughout their life, and it can wear down over time. The knee can have that as you develop some arthritis. So these are two different injuries, speaking about, an acute injury that happens and, doing things safely, you try to prevent them. Doing the ACL injury prevention program, you can prevent. The ones that kind of just come with time because you've gotten some arthritis and the cartilage in your body is wearing away, and then it tears the meniscus, or your rotator cuff slowly tears. Just trying to be active and be healthy and eat well and maintain a healthy diet, exercise regularly. Those are the things you can do, but you're not going to prevent all of them.
For our listeners out there and our people that are watching on Facebook, I always hear the term impingement. He's got an impingement. What is that? And if you have an impingement, does that lead to more tears?
So impingement is most commonly used in the shoulder. And the way that it works is it's kind of more of it's a bursitis or a tendonitis. So what happens is you have these bursa sacs all over throughout your body. Your shoulder's got one of them. And so you have the bone and cartilage of your shoulder joint. And then on top of that, you have your rotator cuff, which is muscle, which turns into tendon as it hooks into the bone. And then you have on top of that rotator cuff a bursa. And then the top layer is the actual, you have your acromion in the bone. And so between your acromion, which is bone, and your rotator cuff is this bursa. And when it gets irritated, every time you raise your arm, it pinches that bursa against the bone. And that's what people call impingement. And it gets very irritated sometimes. And
it's very painful. I've had it. I know it felt like somebody took an ice pick and jabbed me in the shoulder. And
Right.
that's when Dr. A.J. Seth, I went and saw him, and he fixed it, and here I am, touchdown all these years later. Did a great job
You
with
might have
it.
just blown it out again just doing that.
You got to be careful.
I do. No, well, this is okay. It's the rest of my body I got to worry
when
about.
I do this? Yeah, quit doing it.
And he mentioned, are you more apt to tear something? I know this isn't an area of specialty for you, but I'm sure there are other doctors at Ortho United that take care of Achilles. As you get older, is that one that is more apt to go as you get older and you think you can still dunk a basketball, and next thing you know, you feel like you took a baseball bat to the back of your leg?
100%. 100%. That is one of the ones that just over time, it's got a poorer blood supply than other parts. Mm-hmm. And the real issue is not so much the poor blood supply. What happens is that, say pickleball, for example. Pickleball is always a hot topic.
Right.
People go out, and pickleball is one of these sports it's on a smaller court. It's very accessible, and somebody will go out there that has not done anything athletic for 20 years and go out there and try to play pickleball, and it's an explosive sport, and you run after a ball, and you stretch a tendon and that hasn't been stretched in a long time, and there it goes. But I actually fix a good amount of Achilles.
Oh, you do that?
I
okay.
do that one.
So like Deshaun Watson, we're talking again with Dr. Zachary Stender from Ortho United. But how unusual is it to tear your Achilles and then tear the same Achilles while rehabbing that original surgery from the Achilles?
It's not very common.
Okay.
Now, it can happen, obviously.
Right.
And a professional athlete's under different stresses than, we are. But, and they have, heavy people falling on top of them. Their muscles are stronger than ours are. Like, their tendons are probably under, and their ligaments are under higher stress than the normal person. But it is not super common to re-tear.
Mm-hmm. And is this a fair analogy with the Achilles, that it's like a rubber band that's been used many, many times and stretched out and then maybe dries up and then you try to stretch again and it tears?
I don't know if that's so. It makes a lot of sense to explain it that way.
Like I'm not a doctor, so I'm trying to figure out what that's like. So what's a better
I don't
example?
think that's a terrible analogy. I think that over time there's some wear that occurs. The blood supply can become compromised, and it's usually not like just a wear over time like the rotator cuff. It's usually an explosive event that overcomes, it's called the load to failure, but that's the scientific term. Really just it overcomes the tension it can accommodate.
Wow, that's
So it's not always brought on by something that led to it.
Not always. Now, there's different, sometimes, so people who take certain antibiotics can predispose you to Achilles tendon tears. We know that. And then there's some people who have a pain in their Achilles tendon that goes on for a couple weeks that precedes the tear.
Really?
And that could be a warning sign.
It's a warning sign then.
All right.
The bad news is there's not always anything you can do to prevent it,
It's going to happen eventually.
usually.
Yeah. Anything else, Doc, you want to share with our listeners here on WHBC? It's Doc Talk with Dr. Zachary Stender from Ortho United. We've had a blast. Time's flying by. We could talk to you for another half hour.
More free advice.
Yeah, that and just sports-related stuff, since sports medicine is your specialty. Anything else you want to share with our listeners and viewers?
I don't know if I have anything really specific. I'm always happy to answer any questions. I enjoy these kinds of things. It's a pleasure being on here, and I thank you for having me. If you guys have any other questions, great.
Go ahead, JT. Here's your chance, man.
We'll just have you back because we're only on till 6:30. We'd love to have you come back and join us. So this has been so enlightening and so informative. Doc Talk every week with another member of a surgical staff at Ortho United. And remember that webpage, orthounitedohio.com.
Yeah, and he's not just going to be with us, Dr. Stender, but Pam's going to have different docs on as well in the morning. So you get the morning show. We're afternoon drive. So we're here to spread as much information and help as many people out there as we can by getting experts like yourself and your other teammates there at Ortho United on with us. So, Doc, thanks for coming in. Thanks for all the information. And definitely let's do this again, all right?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Love having him in here. It's Doc Talk with Dr. Zachary Stender, orthounitedohio.com. For more information, you can go see his qualifications, his teammates' qualifications, get all the information on the walk-in clinics and all of that. One location, orthounitedohio.com.
It's Kenny and JT on WHBC. WHBC AM Canton. Reliable as ever on News Talk 1480 WHBC.